Right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live. We are live. We are live indeed. Before we go, I want to make apologies. Yesterday's broadcast, it was just a slight one, but these things can happen. I make a mistake. Instead of 2023, when I've been introduced the program, which was meant to read the 27th of January 2023, I instead say 2022. I reversed the time back. So my apologies for that. It be meant for, say, 27 January 2022. Anyway, all said and done, massive greetings to Fambulem from the then and now TNN TV media empire. Today, now the 28th of January 2023, and me with the talk to one my name Prince Emil Koma. We get a very special guest, very special guest. We don't need introduction because he's been around for like ages. It don't be over 25 years now we missed. And quite recently, he's been very active. When I say recently, I mean like in years, the last 5-6 years, writing books, doing publications, holding TV interviews, holding programs on his own. So Fambulem would ask Una for help with for sheep. This is a very special program. And obviously there's a message here for the Sierra Leonean populace. Once more, this is not the TNN TV media empire. Me where they talk to Una, my name Prince Emil Koma, and there's more to come. So please don't touch that dial. Yes, Una still continue for hold on right there. We guess they come shortly. And Una, please help with for share. Don't just watch this alone. Please help for share this program. And we also encourage people for actively participate in the chat room by submitting your views, your analysis, your questions, your opinions. Please feel free to do so. In the meantime, let we continue for shape. This is not the then and now TV media empire, the hub of the conversation, where you go hear things them way in no other side. Keep tuned. So yes, again, Una, welcome to this massive program. And the numbers seem for the development more on YouTube. We get we get about 20 people, here they watch combined because the program is being live streamed to both YouTube and Facebook. So again, we get a very special guest, and this guest, like I say, we don't need to introduce him. He is famous, he's incredible, he's well known. And he's now a legend, basically. And all of which in the adjective they want to use are aptly suited to the individual they talk about. And this individual is none other but incredible, phenomenal Cherno Alpha Mba, the editor of the Africanist Press. Cherno, welcome to the program. It's good to see you. It's been a while. Happy New Year. And your fans, you have been missing you. I've had many questions, many messages. Some in good faith, but some in Chisabi, but all said and done, here you are. It is good to see you. You're mute.
Yes, thank you very much for hosting this discussion today. Yes, indeed, it's been a while since we talk to people since I come now, the then and now show almost since the end of the year. I don't do any break. So it's good to be back here. Nothing is wrong really. I just decided for take a little break and prepare for this new year. But we're doing the same thing, same place. And as we can always say, the struggle continues.
A luta continua. Yeah. And just a quick one. Yeah, good evening, Bangor, Northern Ireland. That's my brother Delwyn Thomas, Famoro Kuruma, George Orwell, an incredible supporter of this platform. Good evening, Mr. Orwell. Mohammed Ba, Patrick Dost, rather, and Tommy Satya, Sylvia Kamara, Abdullah Juma Jallo, Alpha Sisi, and many people in Suleiman Bari. I could go on and on and on. Are beginning to watch the program, and once more with the appeal to owner for help with for share the program. Don't wait after, get a live version. It's a good dose, it's healthy, keeps you, your blood the run fine. Cheno, I want to let we go straight to the point. Obviously, we have a caption there. Decision time 2023. What Sierra Leoneans they need for no? What is Sierra Leonean they need for no?
Well, we already done the talk about 2023 as a very important year. Now, we got a number of things lined up, but most importantly, 2023 in a global election year. In a year where many countries in the world they hold elections, especially so in Africa. We got elections coming up in Liberia, elections coming up in Nigeria, and plenty other places across the continent. Of course, elections, they come up in Sierra Leone, parliamentary, presidential, and local council elections. Multiple elections, they happen in Sierra Leone in June 2023. And for the last 5 years, everybody done the point towards 2023. They look forward to 2023. And we're a couple of months now away to that event, which is the voting event, the event where the first term or the term, actually the legal term, the legal mandate of Madabio will end, and then it will try for seek a renewal of that mandate. So the dramatic developments will take place right across the last almost 4.5 years, leading up to 5 years now of Madabio. And we don't be at the forefront of, or we are among the people who have been on the front line of the conversation and reviewing Madabio in performance, electoral promises, and also along with it, the infractions we don't take place in the general political landscape of Sierra Leone the last 4 to 5 years now. So 2023, I think the people of Sierra Leone, they look to so many other things, but most importantly, to the power of the vote, the ability or the opportunity for cast the ballot and make sure that that ballot is counted, properly counted, and see whether their voices can be expressed through the ballot box. Challenges don't deal with that. In the course of the last year, we don't see the progressive effort of the politicians across parties, not just Madabio, but politicians in the APC, politicians in the NGC, the C4C, basically both the opposition sector, greater sector of the opposition, largely in parliament and outside of parliament, and the ruling party combined, a combined effort of the political class for deprive the vast majority of Sierra Leoneans the opportunity for decide which kind of government, which kind of politicians will represent them, both in parliament, in the councils, and in the executive branch of government. So we don't see the introduction of various laws then, all kinds of legislation for prevent people and for carry out that right, single right for decide, constitutional right for decide for themselves who should represent them and how they should be represented. And of course, that discussion will start around the complicity of parliament with the introduction of new election laws, the introduction of new political party laws, the introduction of new surveillance laws, and all of these things. Then now some of the discussion will end last year. So there was a need for take a break and also breathe a little bit and then look forward to the next 6 months or the next 4 or 5 months leading up to the elections of 2023. And that is where we are now. People are looking forward to the elections. So we got to talk about the issues that will potentially constitute the election or the demand for the election, and why perhaps for the first time in the history of the last 60 years, so to speak, or at least the history of the last 30 years since 1991 to now, we don't see difficulty on the part of the politicians to hold on to a kleptocratic system that they have comfortably run and exchange among themselves for a long time. Now it's becoming so difficult and so tedious on the part of the politicians for fool people then, for distract people, for deceive people, and even deceive themselves about the reality of the situation and the consciousness of the people, where the people are, and the, how the people understand all of what they happen. Because there's always some kind of contempt on the part of the politicians and a few people who think that a land book in the country for things say ordinary people cannot think, cannot analyze, cannot understand situations on their own, or they cannot see through the machination of the politicians. I think say now they don't confront that reality, and what will they see now? A constant war on the part of the politicians for maneuver, for get away with the things how they run things in the past. So it's for me, it's an amazing movie to watch. Amazing development. Looking at it 10 years ago, looking at it 20 years ago, and like you said, for the last 25 years, where you look at way back to now, as I say, then and now, if I can borrow that particular phrase there, it's an interesting thing to watch, for see how the collapse of a system, how the system is collapsing. Because no matter how you come to, we talk about 2023, but regardless of what we come to see, it's a collapsing system, and a lot of interest is collapsing along with this system, including the interest of politicians. And how did they struggle? Like we Potopoto, they fed for claim hill, but also are slippery. It is they're on top of the hill, like they watch them people, they fed for claim. And then they go to them for down, they go to them for down. So that's how I have been looking at it now. I'm enjoying the show. So if you ask me in brief, there's an amusement in the process, in this process, an amusing phenomenon, and I've been amused and entertained by what is happening, and I continue to be entertained by the situation. But yeah, we look forward to the election, and we look forward today for talk about the issues surrounding the elections and what is at stake with the democracy of Sierra Leone, and why it has become so challenging to hold a free and fair election.
Yeah. Well said, Mr. Ba. But of course, these issues, they're not new to you and many Sierra Leoneans, them, and something very critical where you say, the politicians, they grab the money. I can always tell my friends them this same thing, almost equivalent to what you say. Then take a look at themselves in the mirror and then feel say they're the smartest guys ever and continue for things say they will continue for big full people. But yes, the decision time they come. You talk about the actions that we government don't take both in the past and continuously now as we speak. We mentioned at the flyer about lapses. In other words, negative things they here that they've done, which has affected the country economically, politically, and socially. And you, as a prolific writer, don't write a lot about these things. So you get the issues, the facts at the tip of your fingernail. Now, yes, we want to talk about the issues. Them. What are the plus and the minuses? Let's be honest and create, like a kind of balanced conversation. Because government is not just all that wicked, all that poor, all that bad. There must be some pluses or plus. Maybe they don't get more than one plus, but there must be some. So can we do some comparative analysis? Outside the Marabio government is strong, the SLPP government is strong or do well, whereby some people estimate it difficult, but we want your view on that. And waiting at the downside to them leading to the election.
Yeah, I like the question. It's very good to ask that way. Every every human being itself a combination of infractions, a combination of anomalies. Societies are made of contradictions. The world itself will be this one are the result of contradiction. Where God create the world, He create night time, He create daytime, He create sadness, He create happiness. So now a combination of these two, what I called opposing forces, now they cause the tranquility of the society, the progress of society itself. I have to start that in a philosophical way. Because if you not get night time, you don't get daytime, the world not going to be even. Each time, every time when they put here breach the normal process of operation, there is always going to be some kind of within the problem. So of course, there are good things with the Madabio government, and those good things are the fact that for the first time in the history of the country, we are able to directly assess. We get the opportunity for see how government they function in a sense. We see how president they thief money, they use travel for take loot, transform the central bank into a private pocket where the wife of the president and the president they do competition on how for carry money out of the country. It used to happen in the dark or in some other indirect methods, but now we're able to see them directly. That's a very positive thing as far as I'm concerned. We are able to see that. What makes that possible now? Because they actualize what we call a single treasury account. So when the government can, Madabio, as you know, you get to go back where he talks about the economic order number 1 or executive order number 1 that calls for the maximization of domestic revenue. So they increase the domestic revenue mobilization. So the government begin and now they say they not set up a central, actualize the law will allow for the setup of the TSA, the Treasury Single Account, which means every government operation should be centralized in a single account at the central bank. That was a positive thing because that enabled the African Express for get direct hold of government, the hub, the nucleus of government financial operation. You don't understand? So that is the plus. And the plus here is that when you diversify the theft, when you spread out stealing, it's not like stealing is not happening diversely. But now when you locate all of the thief process in one bracket, so it's easy to see the thief man. It's easy for me to see the thief man outside the country because now you didn't have a nucleus, you didn't have one small center. So that was a very good decision. The negative aspect of it, if you want to see, because now people are armed, and that negativity that you come to see is on the side of the government because now their own action haunted them. By centralizing government expenditure in a single place and with the intention for steal, we were able to catch them. And for us, it's a positive thing because a positive action that they decided to centralize government revenue mobilization expenditure in a single bucket. So by getting hold of the details in that bucket, we are able to show the public what's happening. So that's a positive. The negative thing is the fact that it annoyed those in power because they do not want to be held responsible because they gave a promise that they were doing that to cut down leakages, to reduce waste in public spending, to get rid of corruption. And based on those terms, we are also able to see, okay, now that everything is centralized, let's see if waste has been reduced, if frivolous expenditure has been reduced, if corruption has been reduced, if misallocation of public funds have been reduced. They'll find out, say, in fact, if anything else, it has quadrupled. And we not only make those as allegations, we were able to show exactly from this very centralized account of government and the very centralized details of government in this documentary form, how, like we did a surgical, so we just opened the intestines of this single bucket account and showed the public, look, I never had this issue. So what happened? The government went overdrive. Both the politicians in the opposition and the ruling party went overdrive. They became annoyed that this was shown. And because the implication here is not just now, it's for the future. Because now, when we look at account, you don't only see Madabio, and the good thing here, you not only see Madabio, you see all the other companies. You see companies of lawyers, you see politicians there. For example, we take the travel account of Madabio, you look all the ticket money they were sent. One of the companies that received the highest amount of money in tickets, the Africa Travel Center, which is owned by Alpha Kanu, APC politician. So you see that, or you look at Fatima Bio in expenditure, you see companies receiving money for furniture, receiving that are tied to these politicians. So basically, the positive is the fact that we are able to show that the corruption in Sierra Leone is not just, it's a syndicated approach where it crosses party lines, where even when the SLPP is in power, the APC politicians and their families, members, their friends in business, in the professions, in everybody is sharing the loot. That the public is always in the dark fighting amongst themselves, where in actual fact, the politicians, regardless of the party that's in power, are benefiting from the situation. For me, what it did for me was, an aha moment. Just like when daytime and nighttime cross each other, that kind of surprise would go, they say, eclipse of when the eclipse happened, the kind of surprise that the public will, that people in this way, we've witnessed eclipse, that kind of surprise where they say night don't, moon don't come out something, or the sun no grief for go. It is still a night where people in the common don't begin a knock pan and begin saying, you don't witness that kind of situation. So for me, writing about corruption in the past, this was like the same kind of shock I had. Like the eclipse for me, it was, so this corruption, so basically I was able to see through this process for the first time the DNA of the rot that constitutes the Sierra Leonean society itself. So, and every day I keep discovering as I keep going along, because that's what investigations do. You'll be looking for something, and then you end up seeing the things that you were not looking for. And I tell you, if we put on a scale, having assessed the evidence so far, if we put on a scale the evidence of the loot we don't take place in these 4 years alone, you find out, say, the beneficiaries of the loot are largely opposition politicians and their family members who are receiving the pecuniary benefits of this kleptocratic arrangement that has happened. So if you ask me, for me, the benefit, the good side of that aspect, that's one example I give. So the good side of that aspect is the fact that we, the people of Sierra Leone, including myself inclusive, are able to see the operational mechanics of the society, the corrupt society itself, in its first hand. Secondly, we are able also to see the kleptocratic nature of Sierra Leonean society beyond party lines. Then more than that also, I am able to see, personally, being able to see interest groups. I see the interest groups. So in the past, if you look all throughout our right for the last 20 years, I've always focused on the presidency as the central focus, the center of my critique. Throughout, including books I've written and articles I've written for the last 20 years or more, I've always held one president accountable as bearing the greatest responsibility for everything that has happened. That's for the last 20 years. This Tijan Kaba, you look all the articles about right now, Tijan Kaba to Anes Kuruma to Madabio. So in the case of Madabio now, because of this process, what we will begin to look at and get this access to the centralized financial operation of the government, I was able to see beyond the presidency as an institution, the presidency as the embodiment, as the single sole embodiment of the political structure, governance structure of the country, because I was operating under the single yardstick of the president can appoint, the president can disappoint. So because he can appoint and disappoint, the buck starts and stops with the president. So if it's a portion responsibility, it has to be that. That's how, let me find out, say, for me, everything I've written, even where I write about ministers, they are just an object of illustration, but I've always written about the presidency and the power of the president. The president as an institution, as an individual, we carry this greatest burden of responsibility for the country. But now I begin to see that the presidencies can be captured by the lieutenants of the president himself him or herself, the presidency, can be captured by the subaltern elements within the governance structure itself. And what helped me foresee this now the kind of the last 4 or 5 years. So now we begin to think about, in the case of Sierra Leone, these layers, these corrupt layers, networks of the society that spans across party lines, that goes beyond even the knowledge and the operational power of the president. Not to say that the presidents can be innocent, and this largely also gets to do with why perhaps individuals like Madabu, people who don't get serious intellectual capacity, can end up for be leaders of political parties, flag bearers, and end up for take state power, because those are the people that are needed at the top, while these elite groups surrounding them are actually the real dangers, the danger to the politics of the country. And that is what, in my over 20 years, or probably up to 25 years now, I would say, I have been able to see, oh, okay, now. So when I sit back, I sit in a comfortable place knowing that, oh, okay, now, finally, we have dug up the actual roots of the cancer we've been looking at for the last period. Because I have been going across parties for the last period. I can take Atuwara 2002, 2004, 2003. I put the only thing I did for pool now, the names of individuals, I put the new names. I don't need to write anything new. It will read just like today. So that cyclical problem will be the sea. I, for one, had always looked at the presidency as the center of critique, the center of my critique. So now, because of what I don't branch out. As you see, that's why you find out even for the last 1 year, last 6 months now, getting to 8 months, I have been looking at different actors and different players across the opposition, across parties, because in the process of examining Madabu and the Madabu administration, based on his electoral promises and his actions, I will see now say, oh, there was something that has evaded us in the past. These networks of corrupt elites from the legal profession to academics to business people and all of that. So one good thing will not happen with the Madabu administration, and the fact that it don't help we foresee the DNA of Sardinian society. That would not have been possible if perhaps the centralization of government expenditure has not happened. So in a way, it enabled, the situation enabled citizens like myself to be able to directly hold the government on his testicles with physical and direct evidence of their own action. So that, for me, as a journalist, as a writer, as a critique of social critique, or somebody with the whole society, with the introspect and study society, if I like, as a social scientist, it was a very good thing for me, because it allowed me the material, it gave me the material that I needed in my laboratory in the process of examining the Sierra society. So that has not happened for me in the period of my practice before now. So that's a very good thing. The bad thing with that kind of situation, because it made the politicians, both in the opposition and their friends in business, their allies in the professions, including academics, very uncomfortable, to the extent that they even came after my head. And so for the first time now, I see the hypocrisy we in the right way. Sometimes we have in the right, SLPP the celebrator, APC go vex, or APC the celebrator, SLPP the celebrator. Now they cannot, because finally the lines don't collapse. We don't discover the actual line. We don't, so the boundaries have been, the frontiers of that engagement have been collapsed. So what you see is the elite groups now coalising. So the coalition will be there in the hidden, is now in the open. And now it allows somebody like me and others who have been looking at the situation for no matter how few we are able to see, oh, okay, finally we don't see the problem in its holistic form. We don't see them. We've been looking for the problem. I am telling you, I've been looking for the actual problem for the last 20 years. In fact, that condition with consistency over time. Because people ask, why this man write more? Why they write? So they tend to look for motive for what I write. No, I've been trying to understand Sardinian society. I've been studying it. I've been investigating it. I'm learning about it. And I tell you now, at this point, I can sufficiently see the evidence where we get under the Madabio because of Madabio and the way we operate. It provided us the required material that we've been looking for in our social laboratory, in our social examination, social diagnosis of what is wrong with Sierra Leonean society. And perhaps also we now can attempt to answer why we have Muppets as presidents, people who do not really have the real leadership acumen that is required, the kind of vision, the kind of intellectual capacity, the kind of foresight for govern, that we've been focusing on introspecting and interrogating leaders, the presidents, as they are wondering, what is wrong with this man? So it goes beyond Madabio Nafulman, it goes beyond Aneskrumano, we get good policies, it goes beyond. So now we begin to say, okay, let's pause a minute. Look at the elite networks. Why is the Bar Association silent today? Why is the Association of Journalists silent today? Even when Parliament is talking about bringing in new laws for limit people's access to information and the ability for journalists to cover rules. Why they talk about the surveillance operation that is handled. So it's not because they are scared. They are really terrified by Madabio. In fact, Madabio is not in charge of the situation. So these kinds of questions were modeled for us in the past. Now it really gets sufficient evidence thanks to the Bio regime. So that's one thing. If you want me to continue for other examples, I will continue. I would spend the whole day. So this one positive thing, it gave me the required laboratory material for assess the entire Sierra Leonean political class. And I tell you, those who are listening to you, if there are politicians in the APC and the SLP, they know what I'm talking about. Because they know that I'm speaking a language that they understand. And not only understand, they are now scared of what I will do with the kind of information and knowledge that I've acquired as a consequence of this process that I entered into. And sometimes stumbled into. So I tell you now, say, I can sit down and I decide I'm not write nothing again because I have actually discovered what I was looking for in the process of my investigation the last 20 years. I've seen the problem now in its full circle. So I don't need to write anything new anymore. I don't need to reveal any new information again because already myself, in the process of investigation, I've uncovered the DNA of the crisis we've been dealing with for the last 60 years. And that is what is responsible for my commitment all these years. So if you were looking for a mood, I was actually trying to understand why we come to with all these resources, the diamond, the gold, the bauxite, all of these things, mineral wealth, small population, immense natural wealth, immense marine resources, immense environmental resources, extractive resources, but still we're still then at the bottom of development with all the university, all of the education, all of this, why we still the struggle, why we get debt and all of these things. So these are questions that have occupied my entire life. From what I begin consciously, I begin to think, I say, I want to do something. So now, at this stage of my life, I am able to say, okay, I don't see. So that is what has happened. But it has come as a it not come easily. This did not happen easily. It took sacrifice also on our part, and that sacrifice include for make we stomach insult people in the causeway. Then they say things. We say no problem. We able to bear that small to go no more. The endurance, the courage, and resilience, and the the virtue of consistency is what has gotten us to where we are. And I tell you, it's a powerful thing. It's a powerful thing to be that disciplined enough, to be that committed enough, to be that focused enough in the midst of the cacophony of voices and distractions. You still say, okay, I keep my head and remain focused and do just one singular thing. It's a lab. I was in a social laboratory looking at the situation. So now I can comfortably say, in fact, I'm able to say, if we assess the crimes of Madabio in the last 4 years, we can find out, we assess the situation, we can find out, say, all of the atrocities, all of the, human, political, and economic atrocities will not happen in the last 4 years, can be, when we put them on a scale and begin for apportion, you find out, say, the opposition politicians, largely in parliament, should carry the responsibility of the decadence we have experienced in the last period, including the recent Supreme Court yesterday's unconstitutional, or what do you call yesterday's
Supreme Court ruling.
Overthrow of democracy, the coup, the legal coup against people's democracy in
So we come to that, Chair, because you've said a lot.
So this is one. Ask me about good and bad. This is one good thing, personal level. If you want me to say two more other things, I can continue. But
please, two more other things then.
Two more other things. Okay. The second important thing, which is also related to this, you don't understand, and the fact that the situation as alone now don't allow people them. For example, it gave us the opportunity to be much more vigilant. You don't understand it. The vigilance in this case, and the fact that we're taking the case of June 2022, where we discovered that members of parliament in the opposition, together with the ruling party, were actually ganging up to give, at the preface, the second good thing and bad thing as well.
Yeah.
Along the same thing. We are ganging up to give Madabio a second term through legislation by making sure that people are unable to vote or narrow the political contest in a way that it becomes predictably in favor of the incumbent. So we see how they decide to operationalize the country into action with all kinds of distractions we don't talk about. But the important thing, Ayana, that when we discover that, we're able to mobilize world opinion or world attention for pay attention to parliament. Many people I spoke to or who spoke to me confessed that for the very first time in the 60 years that they remember, both old and young people, that was the first time they actually paid attention to parliamentary proceedings. And many people have been paying attention now since then. You remember, this was the time when we highlight the fact that there was a dangerous bill that was being put in parliament by members of parliament collectively across the board. We therefore introduced the NIN, the NCRA, proportional representation, and all of that. Then we invite people and say, call your members of parliament. For the very first time, some members of parliament received calls, phone calls, and text messages from people, from Sierra Leoneans they never knew, and that they do not even know, hundreds of messages that they could not even check their phones. So that is an opportunity where we actualize what we call participatory democracy, direct democracy, where people from all over the world, Sierra Leoneans from all over the world, in Australia, in Europe, in North America, in Africa, we are able in real time to make direct demands and direct messages, their voices to the Speaker of Parliament, to the parliamentary leaders and all of that. So because of the intense nature of the governance landscape of Sierra Leone introduced by Madabio and the Madabio government, and the complicity of the political groups and how they were all now struggling to hold on to a collapsing system, we are able to mobilize Sierra Leonean attention. So that a participatory democracy live, broad daylight. So that is a very good thing. The sad part is, if people do not need to hound their elected representatives for do right by society, because governments are elected to do good.
Yeah.
Governments are never elected to provide bad things. The essence of having government in human society is the origin of the state. Now, for regulate society for the common good and for welfare for everybody, to provide good roads, to provide electricity, to provide water supply, housing, protect people and lives, defend them, civil liberties, and all of that. So when it gets to a point where people will have to use technology and the tools in their disposal for harass and argue and go into sleepless moments, forget the elected representative for do something we don't want, that don't tell you say the society is messed up. It's a bad thing. So that's one other example of a good and a bad thing will happen under Madabio. So the good thing is it has activated the consciousness of Sierra Leoneans, people who were before now not interested in politics, not interested in policy, not interested in the impact of policy or political action, are now increasingly becoming aware and interested in becoming aware and becoming concerned about the way and manner that politicians are running the country. That is a new thing. The ugly side of it is that the politicians who are involved in this racket have always gotten away with this. For example, Parliament has always operated like a secret society, Bush. Nobody goes to Parliament, nobody cares. When they are hill. In fact, they are like a secluded institution. So we have broken that myth. We have brought Parliament face to face with the people. Parliamentarians are now hiding. They are, to the extent that they are openly lying. And now people they tell us, when they lie, they tell them. You at the other way, people, ordinary people, they call parliamentarians, they're out. They tell them, say they lie. They don't betray, they don't sell out. And these are not mere allegations. It is basically directly from the result of the activities of people. In the past, it was impossible for people to get this kind of enlightened conversation, empowering conversation. In the last 20 years, it was impossible. Even when we print newspaper, it's difficult for even circulator. Now, with a click of a finger, I sit in Illinois and thousands of Sierra Leoneans are reading what we write. And when we say, hey, when I call, everybody calls, everybody expresses, because that is democracy, is basically people's enlightenment is growing as a consequence of the current collapsing situation that has resulted from the crisis emanating from the way Madabio has run the country and the fact that he has allowed himself to be captured by these diverse interest groups in the country, in the opposition and across.
Wednesday, if I can just jot in, because there's a lot said there and we need to unpack some of them. If me,
so this is the second example. I can give another example again, but more.
I know you're never short on examples. I know say you can carry out the entire program giving this example, contrasting, different, narratives. Well said. But I get a few thoughts, questions, and opinions as well, based on all waiting you don't see. So, for example, we get the opposition and the government. But according to you, there is collusion between both, and you've made this case over and over and again. Whenever you've got the opportunity, both in your writings and your publication them in video interviews, you've made this case. And it is becoming convincing, if only the circumstances, because if people and follow, and I think you say something like that, investigative journalism can lead you. Now you don't able foresee the real DNA of Sierra Leoneans, them, and kleptomaniac politicians, them, and now they know they mislead the people, them. But somehow the people themselves, then they inside the same soup. Like, for example, I was going to ask you, but in the end you answer that, which is government, then they elect them on the basis for do good, not for do bad. Now make them can come up with a manifesto. We're very colorful. And if it's too good to be true, Sierra Leoneans, they need for begin for see through renting then it is as well not good, because we don't see them time and again, and they become unfulfilled. But why Sierra Leoneans them can still jump behind this politician them to the extent that, let's say the airport, for example, people are all over social media. Of course, they both sides, the one where they criticize and the one where they praise the president. Right? For praise the president, he has a bill on the airport, but you not me say you can't critique the airport. But supporters of the president, they go and all the video the toilet inside the airport. I mean, the toilet, and say you don't want to see toilet like this. It sounds so cheap, but than a single or just few. But this is a broad thing across the spectrum of the nation in terms of we people them. But somehow again, it sounds like contradictory, because they say people are becoming wiser, they hide and they open. Try for balance this contradiction, but if there are, based on what I just say, because I'm confused myself.
No, not to the fact that it takes a government to that extent where its own messengers will go to the point of even showing a bathroom, a public bathroom or public toilet as an indication of social progress in itself. It's an indictment. It shows the desperation on the part of the elite justify their indolence and their lack of progress in a society. So that's what it shows, desperation. We cannot, not only a desperate political class, they try for force people for say they are productive.
Yeah.
Only an indolent political class will do that. A really productive political class they have no problems, in showing or for people to see the actual things that have been done. At that level, they debate policy and the actual policies and their implementation, their merit, because we country so deprived, and not only deprived of social and economic development, but deprived of individuals with a vision that will have taken us out of this quagmire of underdevelopment. So, and that is the predicament where we all face as a nation, not just because people are following this party or that other party. That predicament in itself is national dilemma. I've come to characterize it, where what we call crisis of choice. Some time ago, somebody say, people who are committed to the actual program of change, including the general mass of the country, people that are in the country really don't fed up with either SLPP or APC or this cross-party warfare that they think is the problem, they're not really kept themselves in this dilemma where they do not know how to get out of the situation, because already there are these interest groups. It's not about part. That's why we have to be able to talk about this situation outside of this fact that the political class, what you call SLPP and APC, is a faction, two factions of the same class of people who have divided themselves into these two factions, and at the same time they have reproduced byproducts of these two factions in the name of new parties, but not to overturn the system of affairs, but to maintain it or to have a share in it, to have a stake in it. So that's why they call them the stakeholders. Mean a stakeholder in APC, mean a stakeholder in this. So the idea of stakeholdership in itself speaks to that logic of predatory politics, where your connection, your standing within the party, and your own small group. In the past, I've been now called a warlord politics. You don't understand. Naindom bring we to where we are. So their lieutenants, their messengers will always try to show. So when you show that one, they say, look this toilet, the one they see in kind, it speaks to how far we are. As a 60 years of self-rule, we're still not able to deal with the basic conditions of human existence, whether it's under APC or SLPP. It's been the same situation. Why? Because the politicians in these parties are only committed to their own upliftment as individuals and as different factions of the same class. And that message and that consciousness is what I speak to. Now we are getting increasing, even when you look at the comments, perhaps in this program, you see that kind of disillusionment setting into the people, because they say we vote APC and vote SLPP are the same thing. But at the same time, we have not had an independent effort at national development and national reform and national change. I don't want to call it social transformation in the language I will try to use. I'm trying to be very diplomatic. But yeah, here, now the thing that I'm not thinking that people's problem. You cannot blame the victims of a social rape for being, the perpetrators, or for being the cause of their own condition. It just like way somebody don't see a woman, you go to court, say a rape victim, go to court for justice. Then you begin to say, how you been dressed, where you been passed to never, you be very you scat not being, you not been dressed properly, you been show your body, and I make it entice people then for the rapist for attack you. So you cannot start the conversation that way. You cannot blame the rape victim for being a victim of rape. So you cannot blame a population that has been exploited, deprived of amenities and social services and a good life, of being the actual perpetrators of their own condition of existence. No, that's why we have government. They always vote with the hope and expectation, because what drives human beings, wouldn't they give you long life now? Hope. We hope say tomorrow something they increase your personal health. So the personal health and progress of a people in itself is dependent on their collective hope and their collective aspiration and their collective desire for something good, for a good life. That is why we go to school. That is why we even in Africa, that's why we even procreate. Now we could even born picking, they'll say, if I not get, the picking you can't get. Or the whole logic say, maybe picking can pass me. It's a question of collective hope and dream. So people who are voting or who are supporting these kleptocratic organizations and their networks are not doing it willingly because they expect that their future should be stolen. They are hoping any moment and any time that their salvation is going to come, their salvation. So that's what has kept the people going forward. And they keep getting demoralized every other time. Because now you see one small group go, where they argue, where APC people, they argue over leadership. They argue, would have to be leader, would have to be flag bearer, they don't meet up. One of the person grab, here in small guerrilla group inside the party, then go form new faction. They say in a party, where they go second round, they begin to say negotiation. What are they get? How many ministers forget? More we know first, who's minister, who's ambassador they get. So when people who have invested their hope, their aspiration, hearing a message of change, they have to support that, and then they see that, they get demoralized. So what they have to understand is that, what we've had in Sierra Leone is not really a political party difference. It's a conflict of the elite interests. That's what we've had. And more so, these conflicting interests among the elite now can generate these factions, new factions, sub-factions of the same class of people. And they are not organizing themselves to get rid of the principal conditions where people face the poverty, the underdevelopment, the lack of economic progress, lack of economic growth, lack of jobs. But they always try to organize themselves for making them get a say, make them become a stakeholder in the looting process. Stakeholder politics, that's what it's about. It's about organizing a few group of people so you will have a bargaining power for making you able to get say and stay in the table. This is why some of them are so disturbed by some of the things that we do, because they begin to say, what do you want? What do you want? No, we just want collective national progress. We just want the emancipation of society. We want a peaceful society. We want a society that will allow individuals, young and old, to be able to realize the purpose of human existence, to live good, to have access to healthcare, to have access to jobs, to be able to function without necessarily being part of these brigades of corruption and theft. So if you ask me, but I think what I speak to is the fact that now increasingly we see a new generation of people who are beginning to appropriate for themselves their own language, their own, they define the terms of engagement. And that is becoming very uncomfortable and scary for the politicians we don't use for always deceive people. And because I listen to audio sometimes and they laugh while they're reading it. They hold Jerry Coco to account, hold Kandeh Yumkella to account, hold Madabio to account. So you begin to say, okay, good. The society is speaking out. It takes, we don't do this for years and years and years. We know say progress is happening, social progress is happening. We look at the distance. We know it's a long journey. So in a struggle like this, you have to have, a long distance travel. So what you look at, you don't come on, and the distance that you're going. So because you see the destination, you see the progress towards that destination, because in the past, we never talk about politicians. Now, we might have been traveling. Ordinary people post on Facebook, say, you don't take $50,000. They are not saying that because they have the evidence. They say it because we have already showed a template of what it costs. So they calculate the cost on their own terms. So whether they are doing it as a joke, or they are doing it as fun, or they are doing it as a distraction, but what you see is basically, what do we want to make it happen? People thinking about presidential travel as a cost to the welfare of people, as a cost, as a burden to the state, that individuals who are in charge of the state are not actually doing us good. They are liabilities. Now a burden on society. Madabio in travel, a burden on society. Fatima Bio in travel, a burden on society. Parliamentarians are a burden on society because they live off the collective taxation they pay. So that are the work we maybe try to do for enlighten people. Because if I mean just saying, so when Madabio travel, it take money. It will be difficult to get the message across. But when I show Fatima Bio don't take $3 million. You don't take one Madabi way go live and take $1 million. So now if I see themselves, I look Facebook and I see somebody they talk about how much Madabi, somebody they sing and music. So already the work I don't see, don't translate. The message has gotten across.
Absolutely.
And they did not get across because AYV interviewed me or 19.1 interviewed me or SLBC interviewed me. In fact, the politicians will control the journalists the way they did. I said, I'm not interviewing. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
So
But
you
they can't silence.
so you cannot. So when I look at that, there's no way I am going to fault these ordinary people who I know are in the majority. The fact of the matter, we don't see them because they do not have that. They don't get that time they for take somebody they try for get chop money, go take a chop money, go pay transport, go na lunge, go snap toilet. What do you care about that toilet bill? I mean, so you don't have to be worried about that.
It seems like it's all orchestrated, but again, well said. Just for add to what you say about where people like can repost or post about the president in travel and almost it cost the treasury. To a larger extent, it's serious. The people are serious, but there's also an element of joke to that, because when people are hurt, you can't continue hurting. You get for fend away for dumping, you're that hurt this, so you don't become, you're like overstressed. But I'll deep dive into something, you're more substantive to the future, which is 2023. In your opening statement, you say something really, really profound and critical, but at the same time as well, it's difficult for Sierra Leoneans them for process that situation which either they develop or get for potentially emerge. Because you see, we don't lump both parties as two cheeks of the same backside. So, and according to you, there is no difference between the two parties them. Now make that they call themselves stakeholders inside the party. So you get class of people that when are the same, belonging to two different political parties, we not get no interest in overturning the current shambles where they take place, not the current, which has been all over the place for the last couple of decades. But still, now they're all two, they run the country. The question I want to ask you, Cherno, is this. In the opening statement, you talk about the president, the importance and significant and historic nature of a second-term president. How difficult it will be, or how you see things they unfold in terms of which we don't talk for the entire 3-4 years, we make her ask the question about advantages and disadvantages of the Mother Bio government, because sure enough, election time, not judgment time. But how you think, say, a second-term president will determine that it will get a second term and get all the instruments of state as we don't see, don't they make use of them, will lose power. Do you envisage anything like that? And if you do, paint the picture for me if you can, please.
Yeah, I'm not saying that one. I'm not saying that one. They've been trying. Before you ask me this, because most people they ask me, "Hey, what do you think? Say go how I will repeat what I've been on say for all these years. I've not departed from that. There is no way Madam will get a second term in a free and fair contest. And we don't see that. If Madam believes say they win a free and fair election, they're not for even try for change the method of voting. They're not for even try for introduce a new elections law. And we say Madam will only get a second term by rigging the next election, by stealing the next election. But the unfortunate part is the fact that stealing the election has become so difficult, so tedious, because everybody is watching. Not just Sierra Leoneans, including non-Sierra Leoneans, have become increasingly interested in what's evolving in Sierra Leone. So we've been going further for talks say the only way Madabe will get a second term is by rigging the election, and he cannot rig the election without the assistance of the opposition, sectors of the opposition. And we say there are two ways he wants to do that. One way will be, the first strategy will be to disenfranchise many of the Sierra Leonean potential voters in Sierra Leone who are likely to vote against him, especially in opposition party strongholds. We say this way before the election bill happened, before the registration. We see that. Now, as we speak, there are over 250,000, more than 250,000 voters whose names are not in the record, even though many of them have registration slips, evidence of registration, evidence that they've been registered. With the difficulty in registration, they register. ECSL in their own admissions, SSA, and delete them were on the basis that they were dual registration, double registrations, and all of that. But they were not properly registered. So the question is, how can you have a biometric system that registers people 2 times of that number? Okay. What are the importance of that number? You are basically saying it is the totality of the votes of the C4C, NGC, and ADP in the last elections. So when you combine Kamarimba in vote, Samsumana in vote, Kandeh Yumkella in vote in 2018, now that same total number, they don't subtract from the register. That is stealing of the election. Okay, it's a process to steal the election. The second thing is that Madabio, he became president by not more than 15,000 or not up to 17,000 votes. He led the APC's candidate at the time, Samura Kamara, on both rounds of the elections, if I'm not mistaken, not up to 20,000 votes. Okay, now you're talking about deleting, taking away voter, and many of these people who they've taken out of the record are basically people in Freetown, in areas of the north and northwest regions where predictably people are going to vote against the incumbent party. So the process here, they don't know, say, they would thief the election at the process, in the process of during the day of the vote at the ballot box, because first time they thief election during the day when they vote, then change the ballot box, then count more, then overvoting and anything. And now there are laws and more observation that can only happen, because look what happened in Samara Bendugu. With more observation, more resilience, people determined for watch the vote and watch the thief. So now the people and they wait for vote against you, make sure they don't vote. So the APC, this brings me to the collaboration of the opposition. The APC members of parliament will count this law. Now parliament, we voter, we help Madam vote this law. Cheriko go them with Kandeh Yumkella and then one, and they will participate, NGC and APC will participate for vote this into law. In fact, they wanted to pass it into law without the knowledge of the public, that we made the public know. Even when they lie to the people and say the NIN is not in legislation, we ended up in a situation where all of these voting illegalities, registration illegalities were happening. They never did anything about it. Parliament get the power. Section 86, subsection 2, empower members of parliament, 20% member of parliament. So Cable request an emergency meeting of parliament on any of these issues for correct them. They never did that. APC alone can able to take that action there. But they never even try for say we don't do the speaker not agree. No, they never did. In fact, they even now APC suggest 2 days extension, and the APC people that then first talk about 2 days extension before ECSL talk about extension. So basically, now waiting the APC they say, now in ECSL they do, the APC members of parliament, Cheriko and group. So the APC people do not want to hear this. But the fact of the matter is, when they wake up, now they are waking up to that reality, because they're not beginning to say, oh, so what in Africa is president? They say that true. But, they are so ashamed to even admit it publicly, because it's shameful. You cannot love somebody, you will love somebody till you take poison, you drink it. Say, because I like you, I will drink soda water for you. No, but a full man never will do that. You must be damn out of your mind. To even, you must be crazy to even do that kind of thing. You don't understand it. So, coming back to the point, that voter suppression force.
Check before we go back, to voter suppression, you'll be re-giving the platform. You say something just now. I just want to let you touch on and briefly, then you go back to the suppression of the voter registration in the platform. Now the collusion of the opposition with the government for potentially if I get you well, give the election to Madabio. Waiting at the incentive there for the people away. Supposedly.
Now that we talk about now. So this, in the first place, these people then are parliament, inclusive of Cherno Ramadan Majuba, they have decided to hijack the APC for themselves. And that's what they did. We will not talk about this at this program long. Just a recap, because now at least the reality of what we will not come up from projection to reality. what we have said, what we talk say don't happen, and what think for happen, all don't happen. The only thing we not happen in what we talk about, now Kandeh Yumkella switching to SLPP openly. Now the only thing we left now in the equation of what we've talked about, if you go back to the clip there, they say all this we don't talk about that. So they want, in fact, the proportional representation is the bargain of Parliament, and Parliament want that. Because proportional representation is not get nothing to do with presidential election. It has to do with how people are going to be elected into Parliament. Now, why APC parliamentarian go want that? APC parliamentarian, under the leadership of the current parliamentary leader, don't hijack the party from the gerontocrats. They've used the courts, they've used the state and the Anti-Corruption Commission for disable many of the contenders for the leadership of the party in the interest of making them able for take over the APC, which is what they have in the interim committee. Now, with a proportional representation, and also in a constituency-based election, some of them say they go to the constituency, they will be voted against because they don't represent people. They don't say they don't represent the interest in parliament. They will say, well, now wait no more. The MP they don't get symbol. So now they have decided to take over the party and not take over the interim executive. They organize the lower level elections and so. And now then get for example, Adema Koli them, Cherry Coco them, they are all part of the same league of people. So if they take over the party secretariat, what they will do now, then get for write the names of who are going to parliament, they will prepare the party list. And don't forget, these people that go to court, they say they will be against selection. They even make a new APC constitution where it talks, even if you want to be APC candidate for the constituency, then get for vote for you. They don't for select you again as a candidate. Now, if you get a proportional representation, how will you decide the party list now? Will I go for represent which constituency? So they go for select. So the party executive, the party secretariat, they go for prepare the list of members of parliament. So now their struggle is, since they don't take over, the caretaker executive is in their hands. Fisher give them the party, give Cherikoko and the party ruling all the parties. So now if they organize an election, they will also get their own people in the national executive. So at the national executive, whether the APC supporter they elect Lahai Mara, they elect, then disagree with Abdul Kabo, or all the MP they don't deal with us, so they don't get a choice again, because now they get for decide in the end who will go to parliament. So it's an opportunity for them to take over parliament. In the case of the NGC, now an opportunity for me to stay in parliament, also through the district block system. So smaller parties will have an opportunity to either increase their representation or even remain in parliament with the current representation we can get, as opposed to a single member constituency contest, where the party for Fetna, the party for more get symbol. In the case of the APC, you cannot get that symbol without competing in a constituency. So it's possible to say if all the MP they go compete in a constituency for symbol for the loss. So now they can able for Fed for hijack the party, get the party secretary will be there. You only see them get a young candidate, and Adema Koli is their candidate. He works in the same law firm with Alpha Jallo. When actually go in law firm, where you can go the party, when the legal representative of the party go for the reinterpretation of the orders. So basically, what they do with the court decision now is not they try for pretend like say Mother Bill now want proportional representation. No, Mother Bill want the law for help them for suppress voters. Now they use stronghold, so they don't talk, because if they really care, they will have. If they want to go to court, now they will go to court with ECSL regarding the registration of voters, the voter register. Therefore, don't call ECSL at Parliament for talk about the $10 million corruption, or for make ECSL talk about the number of registered voters, regardless of the kind of system, whether a district block system, a PR, na constituency-based election you use. How you going to get voters if they don't register? How you voters will vote for you? But they affect MPs, because it only affects the presidential election. Whosoever is going to be a presidential candidate of the APC, if the 250,000 voters, now voters away for vote APC candidate for president, that person already lost 250,000 voters first in the national contest. So APC parliamentarians will not be affected by that, as long as then elect 10 people vote. If 6 people then vote for the parliamentary list, that's that percentage of voters, and then they calculate for making it go to parliament. So which means proportional representation will not affect members of parliament. It will not affect the presidential election. But the deletion, the removal of voters from the register, especially targeted removal of voters in an opposition stronghold, they affect whosoever becomes a presidential candidate. So, which means these members of parliament, and group, then just one for dinner parliament, elect APC, lost the presidential election, they don't care. As long as it's in a parliament, they will prepare now, say, okay, and then the constitution talks say we don't lose 2 times. For example, then we ask them all, hey, without giving a candidate, then we say, oh, Samura Kamara. So if he becomes, he already has 250,000 voters that have been deleted. If Nakarfala Marana candidate, he gets 250,000 voters that have been deleted from the register. So if they contest, they lose. So the parliamentary wing of the party, we get a 2028 agenda, they will just show up and say, okay, we said we don't time this now. So it's all about they have their own 2020. Mada Bio cannot get a second term without the complicity of the opposition. And the opposition can only assist him to get that second term if they allow and rig the election. And he has found that alliance in parliament. Now the parliament make that alliance there. And the parliament, in exchange for that alliance, the parliament also, it don't help the parliamentary wing of the party for take over the APC as it is right now. So the struggle at the APC right now, the struggle for, not a flag bearer and a for right now. Now how for take back them party force from this group of these elements in parliament, we don't take over them party. And all of them, we after all, they all know that the truth is so, but some of them cannot say it because they're also they're afraid. Some are scared to say it because already they don't put corruption case at their head. Then they're afraid again, say for political expediency. Even if them also want for bargain, they don't want for rock everybody after all at the party. But we can say it because we have no bearing or no commitment to anybody. So I can say it because whether you like it or not, you don't go reduce me job money, you don't go reduce me opportunities. Yeah. So that is the point. So the point here, if you ask me, but then this said, that said, you don't understand. Voter suppression is one. The second thing again, in exchange with the allow for suppressed voters, I make instead don't give them the PR. So they actually went to court to validate that they try for free themselves from blame. For say, after all, me, Abdul Kabo and Jeff can go, the APC can go, the matter na court. The court don't rule against we, but the fact of the matter na that the court ruling is basically to validate. The court used what somebody, as I spoke to a lawyer this morning, where we talk about this, tell me say what the court did, and which I agreed, is to use common law to validate the illegality that started in Parliament in tandem with the executive. So now the parliamentarian, the experienced politicians in the opposition, now they think for Madabio and they strategize for it, and they help her. Because they know say if Madabio collapse, they are done, they're finished. Because the crimes where some of them don't commit against their own party force and then party comrades, as they call themselves comrades, then party colleague them. The thing they will not do against them, they know say they don't get future. Now the party and the national politics, if their party comes to power without their own faction in the current situation, then are the fight. So you get opposition politicians in the APC who are basically under attack, not just by Madabio, but by this element of the opposition that is in bed with Madabio, both inside parliament and outside of parliament, who are fighting to take over the party, but they only have to do that through the support of Madabio. And Madabio, they allow them, they use the institutions of the state, the court, the police, the anti-corruption, and all the legal institutions, the judiciary, and all of that. So when you look at it, and they control the media, now they're even multiplying newspapers every day. Then they add newspapers. Look at the amount of newspapers out there, new ones that have been registered in the last 6 months, owned by operatives of opposition politicians. So this is how you know it. And not only that, they don't even go this Friday, this Thursday, then they begin to talk about changing the Freedom of Information law, changing the IMC Act so that they will bring in new regulations for regulate how journalists they cover the election, how they cover. If they care about illegality or unconstitutionality, they will still pass dangerous laws and while they say they go to court. So they try to fool their own party supporters them. But the thing is, it's going to implode in a bad way. Because right now, everybody in the country, they suffer. Tomatis don't go up, Pamai don't go up, pepper don't go up, Gari don't go up. Everything is just skyrocketing. So and people have not become conscious of the fact, say, the Madabi are the problem. Because the now politician will deal with Madabi again, then they pretend that those things they criticize Madabi, then have corner and they help her. So double standard road now they take. So now they don't make the new supporter, they don't believe say Madabi are devil. Okay, that Madabi they marginalize. At the same time, they try for help Madabi. So you see the dilemma where they under now. Now we don't show say they try for help Madabi for we don't show back saying they help, and people don't see her increasingly. So if they succeed in their enterprise, which is very doubtful, then they also get the dilemma. And right now, they don't reach that place. These opposition politicians cannot return. They're not. In fact, the dilemma when they talk about the national dilemma, they are more. They don't trap themselves in the dilemma to the extent that now they don't betray their party and their party leaders. They don't choose Madabiu. Madabiu now don't become unpopular and don't become this difficult person for help for chief election. But they cannot move away from the deal where they get with Madabiu. They cannot go back and take their party leaders as problems. So then they in a more dilemma situation than even the country. So at that stage, they can do anything. So this is why I was even telling people that when we start to investigate the atrocities of August 10, we come to the extent of even the recent the suspicious circumstances leading to the death of Philip Neville. All of these cannot be independently investigated without looking at all of these political groups and political struggles as part of the investigation. So it's a whole, if you notice, it's a whole complex web of treachery and treacherous behavior, betrayal, and all of that. But this speaks to one thing, and this make corruption not find a country. This is all the result of corruption and theft of state resources. But that said, may come back to your question. Is it possible to defeat Madabiu? Of course. If Madabiu believes they win a free and fair election, enough for going to all this kind of a difficult road for try for rogue in the election. It's becoming more difficult it is more difficult to steal an election than to win an election. It's more difficult for thief election. It requires extreme amount of thinking, extreme amount of planning. You don't understand. And the sad part is that when you plan to steal a national election, you are also thinking about the strategy of your opponents. But there are also other opponents who you do not factor into the planning process, who will actually rock the rigging plan. And which is what we have done really by highlighting the complicity of Parliament and exposing the public elections bill. We made it difficult for this plot for go away or get done, for me to able to get away with it without people that don't know what happened. So that we do, and that's what they're struggling with. That make it see them go make that performance na court. All you know, when you check, when you investigate the court trial, you find out say the very opposition lawyer there and the very so-called ruling party lawyer, they go sit down in the corner. The right say you argue this way, you argue this way, you judge the case this way. So they go to the ordinary people, they believe in the theater performance. It's a theater show. It's like you look at Shakespearean drama on stage. That's what we've been looking at. And for me, I am always amused at this kind of choreography, because I never see in the last 20 years, I have been able to see this time this stress on the part of the politicians for crook people and for fool the people. It's becoming so difficult and tedious. So Madabiu can be defeated. All what it takes now forget an opposition candidate that is willing and ready to win the election. And there are only two things that has to be done, which I will not say. I just want
okay. Lastly, when I keep
somebody talk about the same thing, I tell and say Madabiu, with all what you able to don't talk so, is still the worst you will end up with is a parliament, is a multi-represented parliament, or parliament, mixed parliament, but the presidential election can also be won, because the when you take a public opinion poll as alone right now across the country, what do they say? That Madabiu is unpopular across the board, including people within his own party. Right now, Madabiu called meeting of the SLPP rally. It's important. Past APC people and go rally for him. Maybe the supporters of the APC who are backing these opposition supporters, and they go decide for toe in line. But then said, no, he has started campaigning almost a year in advance of the like 1 day campaign right now. In fact, to the point that for it's difficult, even some of the APC politicians there, with and they talk about unopposed, Mother for go without competition. And these are the man who talks, they don't deliver everything. So that is to tell you, even in the middle of trying to rig the election, he's also scared of competition.
So yeah, Cheno, of course, you say two things need to happen, but you wouldn't say. So let me see whether we're able to pry you open, which is going to be difficult, but from a different.
No, don't make that attempt, because I decided I'm not going to say it before coming to this show. Even when you request the interview, I had decided I'm not a talker.
Okay,
fair even if you try to, now the answer you get.
Okay, fair enough. But I'm going to try something. I'm going to try something else, which was planned to ask you anyway. So, two things: the opposition need for organize, for put up a better fight for defeat Marabio, because it is many people believe this election is one for the opposition for loss. In other words, now the election is because of policies, the way state bad policies and how unpopular the government of Marabio is. But unfortunately, the opposition does not seem to be organized. And part of the case where you make, it proves that. But you also say that the only thing we're open to Marabio in terms of this election is to rig the election. So the thing what we want to ask is about consequence, action and consequence. Because action of that kind is depriving the people of their franchise. And I wonder whether the people then will take unlikely or waiting you envisage will happen should the election be stolen in inverted commas.
Well, we just need to look at what not happened in the last within the 24 hours since the High Court talked about. Since the Supreme Court decision on the PR system and the response of opposition supporters in the country were being turned for belief in the facade of being put up in the judiciary by their own politicians and lawyers. So that in itself will help for inform what might potentially happen in the process where elections end up in a way that did not reflect the aspiration of the greater majority of Sierra Leoneans who will be turning up to vote. So I think at this stage, the questions will be, is it possible to prevent the rigging of the election? Yes, it's possible. It can be done. And
How?
There is greater effort on the part of independent actors for make sure that the elections are held in a free, fair, and transparent environment. And we don't hear those voices. In fact, you take the last week, we get these voices. When the first electoral steering committee meeting attended by diplomats in the country, they all re-echoed the fact that they are committed to looking at, working with Sierra Leonean stakeholders for organize a free and fair election. So that's just an example for tell you the sentiment or the mood of all those who are concerned about democratization in Sierra Leone itself, and it will start with the transparent election process. So I still believe, we are definitely going. It's possible to campaign and get a free and fair election, and force the government to play by a free and fair election, and it don't become increasingly difficult for dictators now for change election rules. Somebody just tell me, Kandeh no go say, we could just announce Marabio as I say, hey, you cannot just wake up and announce. If we don't announce it right now, because if we allow people then for vote, and their votes are going to be counted. And if they are counted, they are also not going to be counted by Kandeh alone. They are going to be counted in front of representatives of candidates, representatives of other groups, and other organizations who do not have candidates on the ground. So other parties who just want to make sure that votes are counted in a proper way. So we have to have faith in the electoral process, that I say, and struggle for a transparent electoral process, a credible electoral process. Me believes the electoral process itself get the capacity for provide Sardinians with the opportunity for choose their own representatives. And that is what we're fighting against, for make sure, say, Parliament, the cabinet, they not frustrate people in ability and opportunity for get a free and fair election. If people that want to vote Madabio for a second time, let them do so in a
Yeah, but
in a
check,
transparent election.
all the case where you make and the things the way the people suppose for depend on, in other words, the structures of the state, we're supposed for provide the security for the people them, of the people them, which is Parliament A, and then the Election Commission, ECSL. You self now you out the Election Commission in a $10 million scandal and conduct a bogus voter registration exercise where today get so many poke marks. How can people get faith in any kind of organization there? Or how can these organizations change?
Yeah, like I say, it starts with first and foremost having a candidate who really want to win the election. Once that happens, once if Madabio want to have a proxy candidate of his own choice to compete, if failing that, the opposition people themselves where they would, and the mere fact that they're talking about uh, no competition for unopposed, they want a president to go. They want a presidential election to happen in an unopposed fashion. Wouldn't that tell you? If they really believe they can win an election, they would. Nobody would. Whose term as Aloy don't hear reading they talk about presidential election as unopposed in the democratic competition since we start for whole elections from 1996 to now. That the first time this. Who didn't start to talk about that? APC politicians. They are the first people to talk about if the situation is APC no get candidate, no get this, no. And we are talking about APC candidate because right now, in the general scheme of things, these are the only leading competitors to the current incumbent. Where there's an organized alternative, nobody will be talking about APC. We'll be talking about any of these groups. So because of that crisis of choice is why we're even talking about APC politicians wanting Madabio to go for an uncontested presidential election. So they want him to continue without an election. If that is the case, they will not have even organized voter registration. They never wanted their voters, their own supporters to register, which is why they brought in a law to frustrate them. So the question here is getting me to say the things that I do not want to say. But what are the type of talk about? Yeah, what are the type of talk about the fact that the government, the mere fact that that rhetoric is coming in, that kind of dialogue is coming into the play, speaks to what I just talked about. It's more difficult for thief election than for hold than for try to hold free and fair election. For thief election, it requires plenty brain and other kinds of resources, and that is so difficult because the strategy of rigging has already been exposed. What you've seen at the court case and this and another, Parliament and the executive and the judiciary trying for legitimize the for governance. For me, say, oh, but we try, we've been going to court. But in actual fact, this all started when Parliament decided to bring in a new law. And everyone for doing it secretly. Even when we expose and parliamentarian effects, not one people know. We all know that. So since then, more laws and more laws, because why you would try for making journalists and not cover the election, you make law on how for the election coverage. Because you want to announce, you want to make common man and say, Madam, you don't win. And that is impossible because the elections are going to be monitored, they are going to be observed, they're going to be supervised.
So again, Cheno, good point, and that's where I was veering to. So you talk about independent actor them, and then the international community way you just mentioned. But here is the thing again, Cheno. You wrote about this extensively. We all robbed Motspan state capture, if you can remember, not too long ago. So if apparently the government of President Julius Maada Bio don't state capture these critical infrastructures of institutions, we're supposed to be independent and free of government interference, they don't hijack them, which were confirmed by us, including yourself, in articles and other publication them. Which role the international community get inside when there not be no act then for stop such actions from taking place, such as 250,000 voters struck off the voter registration, and all of them they come out from opposition stronghold. A midterm census, where yes, there were protests here and there, the World Bank pulled out, and Irish Aid, the one they can normally sponsor that, then pull out, but the government continue for march on. Any hope?
No, I think if we say on that, we will not be putting all the information, as it were, on the table. No, I'm not a spokesperson for the diplomatic community. I'll talk about what I know. And what is really okay to say. The fact of the matter is our conversation did not go in vain. Now, because of the conversation we put out and people their awareness, now it make you see, say, up to where we did now, it don't become difficult for make otherwise this would not be like a natural thing, for even witness this whole idea of the going to court with PR and all of that, because mind you, the opposition be one for making them pass. The members of parliament be one for pass the public elections bill without public knowledge. That we bring that to the knowledge of the public, and from then things started becoming difficult. The original plan becoming now the type of forced situation, and in every day it's becoming, for use this popular phrase, it don't become much more difficult than even trying to pass, as they say, camel through the eye of a needle. What am I trying to say here? Now, the fact that voter ECSL is going to be forced to comply because now external funding not begin go. Meetings that were never held before are now starting to happen. Steering committee meetings for elections. So ID cards will be delivered. People with their registration slips are definitely going to get their ID cards because you don't go account for their wire. So ECSL had said there was a mismatch in two systems that they use, NCRA and all of that. So we expect that because these issues have been pointed out, they should be part of the conversation that will go into the demand for free and fair elections, which is what we are heading towards. So make we see how, like I say, it's still incumbent on two things to happen. So I'm trying very hard for which is unusual of me to do, really, as you know, because I found out many of these conversations also inform some of these people they're running out of ideas too. Because they not be expect, say, by now, therefore even they said and this, by now the APC's lower level conventions or election for London, according to the original timetable, for when they begin to talk about constitution. What caused that to the number 24 and halt ultimately the number of everything? It has nothing, it not unconnected to what we talk about to the elections. Because if you say by now Madabio will have gotten his own candidate of his own choice to stand against him in the election. Now that did not even become a challenge to the extent that even the president in WEF, and they talk say APC no go solve their own problem past May. How did you know that? He be not talking in New York back September. He say APC go enter, the opposition go enter and FET. The FET you can for the APC, they not FET itself. But when the politicians they talk, when they talk about this thing in the opposition, that's a statement you have to hold on to. Because when the wife of the president says that, then you talk about, say, okay, what is the role of the ruling party and its allies in dictating when the opposition should elect a flag bearer, how they should elect a flag bearer, or who they should elect as flag bearer. So that question they talk about. So, but they all don't enter into this dilemma, into this difficult place, this triangle of difficulties, simply because they've been exposed and they never planned for that. They not be ever anticipate saying that we'll reach at this point. the opposition in parliament they never expect, say, their alliance that they built, the so-called COP alliance, that be an alliance actually against democracy, an alliance that was in parliament, initiated by parliamentary leaders of the opposition across parties against the national interest, not for a whole Madabio account. In fact, they are in favor of PR, proportional representation. So the double standard approach that the opposition was doing, they never expected that it would be unveiled. In fact, by April last year, they become comfortable, say they were comfortable that they had everything under control. By May, when Fisher they passed the ruling for transfer the party to Cherikoko and Peter Conte and whosoever Peter Conte represented, the opposition and Madabio thought they had everything in control. This reality crashed when we entered into the conversation and exposed the hidden role of these opposition politicians in this grand plot against democracy, beginning in June 2022. So you find out in the last almost 8 months now, it's been a different conversation in the country. And that conversation also does recalibrate the entire operational dynamics of the rigging plan of the BO regime. So now you find out, even for hold a convention, the APC cannot hold convention. Because the one day we want for use the conventions for take the party from parliament for holdover, themselves now, then ordinary party people are now don't begin to say, oh, we don't begin to see. And increasingly, what developments like the court ruling is doing is to reinforce that message that we started way back in June. It does not take away, but they initiated that kind of conversation for cover themselves. So what made me wait and start the court case? I never spoke about it because I waited to see how they will end. One way we were thinking, there was something, okay, we are ruling against Madabio in proclamation for proportional representation because the conditions really wait for the say that no exist. That kind of pronouncement for don't do three things. One main thing, it will have rescued Bio in image that he controls all of these institutions. Because if I don't talk, say, okay, me better, the Supreme Court will not rule against me, even though me a president, which is different from an Eskroma where he sacked Samsumana. But now, when you put that Samsumana decision, you put this decision, in fact, you find out, say, this one way more than the other one, because that one is a party thing, but it not directly affect voters. Whereas this, it weighs more on the question of electoral democracy than the other one, than beyond just a constitutional question of the vice president himself. And whether it affect the voters again is of a tertiary consequence. Whereas here, the primary consequence of the Supreme Court's decision deals with the primary question of citizens and the electoral democracy itself. The other aspects are secondary and tertiary. So you see the difference. So put on a scale of probability, this way more against democracy than the other one. So that's one thing. But if they had ruled that, they may take the stomach for talk, say, Madabio, the proclamation violate the constitution, which it does, actually. But instead, they decided to use common law, the interpretation of the court, for rationalize the illegality initiated by Parliament, validating the illegal census, the midterm census, and the census person, basically. So this was somebody hired by the APC. Usman Sanko was hired by the APC for doing the census. So he has continued to do what the APC parliamentarians and the allies of the APC parliamentarians who have captured the state, actually, who are just using Madabio as a mirage to orchestrate their own operations beneath the BO regime for making and capture not just their party, but in anticipation of the kind of state that they imagine. And then all they do that, they don't use Madabio in presence for pass all kinds of dangerous laws then, from cyber intelligence laws to political party laws to electoral laws to laws where they curtail media and free speech, laws where they reduce people access to public information. Not for Madabio, they do for an environment post-BO. These are the laws they're going to use. You see the constitution what we get? Anybody can do anything. It's like so elastic and so despotic and draconian that the day when you get a lawyer at the as a head of state, that dangerous alone, because they can do anything with it. Now you don't get lawyers, then lawyers them we don't capture the state, capture the judiciary and law enforcement institutions along with it, that they use the constitution for enhanced democracy. They did it under Ernest Koroma, push until he sacked Sam Sumana. Then the crisis, that constitutional crisis, then I hid. They don't can use Mother Bill again for commit more atrocities under a name, use the institutions under bill for harass the young party agents and party comrades. They now use the court again, the same court again, for enforce this draconian landscape. They don't pass, instead of, they stop the constitutional review under Ernest Koroma. Instead of continue that, reawaken that process in the parliament, they don't add more secondary laws then. More secondary laws. All the laws that were passed in these 5 years, now law that we don't give more oxygen to the dictatorial tendency of the constitution for the kind of future government. So if APC have kind of power, they're going to be more despotic and more terroristic than Madabio in the future. This is what happened post 1967, where all of the anti-democratic laws from 1965 Public Order Act to the preamble, the drafted legislation for a one-party state were actually taken over by the APC, and it was APC in opposition at the time. So they just continue. So we will not have hardship as Stephen without that architecture created within Parliament. Okay, the same architecture will lead to one-party dictatorship and terroristic government under APC in the late 60s to 70s and 80s is what these people have created 10 times more under the watch and leadership of Cherry Koko and Kandeh Yumkella in Parliament. That's what they've done. But more so the APC in Parliament. So they not only do that, they are their own lawyers, friends, and colleagues. They are in the bar, in the bench, in the Anti-Corruption Commission, across these institutions that they don't gang up so for arrest this Leonean state and revamp them, recast them, and prepare and sharpen them for the kind of terroristic state that they are imagining to inherit. And that's the danger we're looking at. It goes way beyond Madabio. In fact, the day Madabio lost power, and then Lord, these people will be the ones that will crucify him. But the danger, so if you ask me about the fallout, to speak about the fallout will be if they help Madabio get second term, what he will do with a proportional representation, he will change the constitution, the constitutional review. That after you where them be type of full Ernest Koroma for do. Now you get for do, because that's the only way, that will be his only protection to stay in power. But then they feel, say, the APC get majority in a street, they control the court, they get them people. Basically, in the 10 years of the Ernest Koroma government, they staffed all these institutions with their own people. Statistics Sierra Leone, now they hire APC people, the very parliamentarians, and the people the way they work with Cherry Koko, now they hire Usman Sanko as head of statistics. So basically, they control, since 2008, they've controlled the Anti-Corruption Commission, don't weaponize and use them over time. They're still doing it. Look at the Biobele report. Go read the CY documents. Everybody that's a material in the APC that is a threat to their own party, to the enterprise of taking over the APC and the national government, and then today, everybody we don't collaborate with them in Parliament and outside of Parliament is not accused of corruption. How can you talk about corruption under Ernest Koroma? You avoid Parliament. On the eve of election, Parliament passed some of the most dangerous mining agreements. Who were in Parliament? Cherry Koko was Deputy Speaker of Parliament. So that the very people, you have to assess this individual. That's what I talk then they say in Sierra Leone, if we really want to talk about in future, when we get a government really, we have to do a complete commission of inquiry, including Parliament. Check these parliamentarians for the last 20 years. Whoever has been in Parliament, how much they were worth before they in Parliament, how much they are worth today.
How do we go about that? It's a good idea, and somebody asked that question. They waiting at the solution, so you prefer solution now.
Yeah,
but who will be these actors?
That's a long. So the solution here. That's why I talked about this. Nadamik I talk about say, in fact, this group of people, they are more dangerous to Madabio and the SLPP than they are to their own party. The same way they know them. Anyway. But back to this point. So I still believe, regardless of this cobweb, so as we talk about, you spoke about what is the way out because it's so complex. What has derailed the situation? The reason why they cannot get away with this because they are now in the public domain. So if they be escape from review in June, since we discovered this in June, because we also discovered it. We discovered it because with the double standard approach to corruption and governance as alone, part of it included we became an obstruction to this plan we didn't get, because by revealing the corruption of Madabi and all of that, we were actually annoying this opposition element. We want Madabi for use corruption against the young people. So they have to find a solution, and that solution included how we go discredit African space, how we go stop African space for show this Madabi corruption. This is why whenever you talk about corruption, now then very people have been talk say APC been doing.
So Cheno, so you also imply say like the sacking of the Auditor General, because I call him sack. I mean, see how long it is don't go.
Of course.
Parliament, the opposition in Parliament was also complicit in this venture for Pula.
If they're not being complicit in that arrangement, they will not allow the country to be more than a year without an Auditor General, because Abdul Aziz himself is acting as an Auditor General without the required qualification. Yeah. Now, even if Abdul Aziz is qualified to be an Auditor General, he has to be appointed by the President and approved by Parliament in order for him to superintend a national audit exercise. So the mere fact that Parliament not even bother with the fact that they never had, they will not get an Auditor General up to now. They not talk about, they not raise the question, shows they actually advised Madabio to sack Lara Tilopia, so they will not deal with the burden of why this corruption will come, because now if it's African space only publishing this detail, say, just forget Bota. So they will not, because they know they control the Anti-Corruption Commission. Anti-Corruption will talk about any corruption where they not tell them to talk about. So they operated under the impression that with details to come out, not like they know saying and lie them lie, say Lara they give you information, but they wanted her out simply because whenever the audit report come out, it is still say that what we don't write about, and they did not the audit report. So they will have the burden of taking over. They further validate what we have published about corruption of the BO regime. And they don't want anything but corruption of Madabio, not because they like Madabio, because it disables the BO government from using the only weapon we then want to make it use, corruption against their own party people. Because they want to make anybody, whether a threat to this group, for be accused of corruption in the APC, so they will be getting out of the way, and then they can be the only people without corruption. And then they will lead the party. So our entrance into the conversation on corruption was actually offensive to this APC group that was helping BO more than the Madabio government. And they actually made double efforts to roll back what we were doing, which is that process, that effort will make. And we can see they say, hey, wait, now this, okay. So
yeah, but Cheno, a quick one back again, just quickly.
But yeah,
will it be fair? Will it be fair to say that there is 2 APC, if not more?
No, there are factions. Of course, we have said that. We have said there is an opposition and an opposition within the opposition. I may not use that word if you remember. So basically, there's an opposition element in the APC that is under siege, that is under attack, who have been accused of corruption, who have been blackmailed into silence, who have been terrorized both by their own party members and by the state. Then there is the opposition within the APC that's in bed with Madabio, that is helping Madabio to use corruption against their own party comrades, so they will have an advantage in the competition of their own party. And sadly, many of these people also were die-hard so-called loyalists of Anes Nkrumah in the past government, but who are no longer with him, but they are using his name and the paraphernalia of them being his boys and women in the past. People, men and women who have worked in this government, who appeared in the past to be his preferential appointees and party people. Now they in bed with Madabio, basically, and so they still talk about the winner the party, the winner. So this is how they came up with their straight line. I mean, their camp A, camp B, or how you call it, team A, team B thing, because they know that their former godfather in the APC, or political godfather, had serious clout among their party base. and they cannot come out openly and say, "Would they against Alex Kuruma?"
Okay.
So because that will make them lose. So they have to pretend they are with him, but actually they've sold him to their new.
Let's take a quick break, and the only break for this very, very interesting, very informative program. It seems like you never went anywhere anyway, because this makes up here for the time we being there. Very interesting program. And Fambulem, the numbers are viewing are really appreciable. We appreciate that. Many thanks. With the ask, let we continue for grow the numbers, because we want to grow the numbers. The algorithm actually they favor we and they help we for attract more interesting senior and high caliber guests them. So please help us in doing that. So now we get something like 280 combined. I believe we approach 200 on Facebook, which we haven't done for a period of time now, since after Christmas, because we had a slow start. So we ask if we can hit that magic number of 200. I mean, that will be good. It will be a good feeling. Okay. So if we can, whilst they come towards the end of the show, can we please hit the sharing button one more time? Let me see whether we go surpass that target number there. Just a quick reminder, we talk to none other but the legend, Cherno Alpha M. Ba, the editor general of the Africanist Press, whose work is very immense, widely published, and is held in high esteem, both for and against, because there are people, here that we know who are pretending as if they're actually against him, but it's because they are benefiting, here from either his work, and they have to appear as if they're negative. But the legacy is sealed. So let's keep that in mind. So now Chernobyl now we talk to, not touch that dial, we come back, let we at least in quarter, because the man don't talk a lot. So Fambul, and just a quick reminder again, we talk to Cherno Alpha Emba of the Africanist Press. Very interesting program, and we've kicked start in 2023, and we get boku news for now. Say information are power, knowledge are power, and this is what we do here. We disseminate information, make we Sierra Leonean people well informed, so that choices the way they make is based on an informed one, and this is what we are doing. Today, now the 28th of January 2023, and we come towards the end of this very, very important program. So once again, let me just bring Cherno. Cherno, with all what you don't say, it is scary. And the American then get one saying we seem for resonate with all of what you don't talk, which is damn if you do, damn if you don't. In other words, the Sierra Leonean people are in a kind of a mess. Somebody in the chat room say a quagmire now we day in, because on the other side you look for then get one famous where somebody they drown, something like that, and then you get the tree where you can hang on a branch na the tree, but the branch na the tree get snake, and the other side also if I go take solace from alligator did it. So he can neither go left nor right. And it seems like this is what the Sierra Leonean people and they in. But with all said, 2023, I wonder whether there's a promising note to that. And furthermore, we understand from a bulletin where you put out briefly that there is something heavy coming, towards the last laps of this period. The election is coming. And you don't promise Sierra Leonean people, you don't whet their appetite. I wonder whether you were able to give a gist of what is coming from the Africanist Press in terms of the usual corruption, malgovernance, and you name it.
No, we started off reporting not for change. Not just the details perhaps get for being new, but as soon as we don't end 2022 with no audit report really. So the Auditor General or the Audit Service, not Auditor General, the Audit Service somebody from the audit service, or I see that they spread information around saying that the office of the president, the office of the vice president, were not audited because they not reached the threshold of audit exercise. And the fact of the matter is that you do not audit an office or an organization because the organization thief money. No, you can even audit and say, and show we say the audit don't prove say monies allocated to this office was judiciously used. That's what audit exercises are about. They are not just about showing that X amount of money allocated to a given individual or an office has been misappropriated or misused or stolen. So they are meant to show the health, the financial health and financial activities of a given entity, whether it's an individual or an office or organization, and show say, but so for make an audit service, talk say the office of a president, the national office, the topmost office in a government has not been audited because it was not found to be worth auditing in itself is an indictment. So we hope that part of what we're going to show is since the office was not audited in 2022, we will help Leoneans to see what they did with the money, with some of the money that went to that office. So that are some of the things there. Basically, we will continue the same kind of pattern of reporting by showing use of public funds, presidential travel, and maybe stretch the conversation also, stretch the publications for see how we will bring in some of these other hidden groups that have been out there that we have not touched. Could be opposition politicians and how much. Like you take the airport terminal extension project itself here. In the first place, in the time for Blame Madabe, you abandoned 300 million new airport and 200. But what they do not discuss is how did that agreement pass through Parliament?
Yeah.
What's the role of parliamentarians in approving such a construction project? They did.
Yeah.
And which other new agreements then, from the Kuwaiti agreement to the Nigerian agreement to the Suma group, how much interest these parliamentarians, some of them, get in this project, how they are affiliated with these Suma group and some of the players from Niger to Turkey and the Russian interest behind all of this. So that they're not going to talk about. They can talk about, like, Madabe just grab one morning, you go na airport, you say, Suma group na Kana, you take the airport and say, I don't give you 250 million. And how did a BOT agreement of that nature was passed through Parliament? And whenever you read objection from Parliament regarding the airport and all of this. In fact, when you check the proceedings of Parliament, or you find that members of Parliament, especially in the opposition, will have commendation for these kinds of agreements. Just another example would be Fisher, who was used to dismantle the APC, was never was a contract judge, even when the APC lawyers themselves being questioned in qualification for practice law in a salon. Now they made him a judge with all the things that we don't commit. They took him to Parliament. The same time when they talked to Cherikoko escaped na ECOWAS. He came to Freetown and participated in the approval of Fisher. Did not only participate in the approval of Fisher, but commended Fisher. And not only commended Fisher, but also called for more salaries and benefits for members of the judiciary, including judges. So it didn't have the record of Parliament. It's in the House of Parliament. So, but then when the APC supporters and the members, and they talk to them, they say, you see, Madabe, I don't impose Fisher. I don't approve. And they talk about Cherikoko the gate na ECOWAS, he escaped ECOWAS, he came na Freetown, he participate in the approval of, make sure say Fisher not get any problem for me their approval.
And Cheno, there have been other situations them where arise where in presence be needed, but according to the vote roll call in Parliament, he was conspicuously absent.
Yeah, then they do that. So we have to look at all of these multilateral agreements, all of these loan agreements with Parliament, because it starts with Parliament. Parliament have approved. Parliament don't approve the budget and never raise them questions there. So you cannot talk about the sale or the auctioning, if you like, of Sierra Leonean sovereignty, Sierra Leonean territorial frontiers, in this case, the airport, the ferry terminals, to Turkish and Russian interest without the role of parliament. So parliamentarians, they hide behind the scenes. They actually perpetrated this. So you need for check their agreement there. I find out say they get shares in all of these
Yeah.
future company operations. So
Yeah.
these are questions and issues we hope perhaps we might be able to raise and highlight in the process of reporting, because these are all election issues. So the series we intend to start from this February moving forward will be election related, or publications that will be targeted on helping voters for make sense of vote of how they will decide whether they want to continue with a government that has, together with the opposition, done these kind of things, or they will think otherwise. So that one. The other thing also will include what happened, because people talk about timber money. They say Babadina, Bo Rangers manager, and all of this. And somebody went and is so charitable enough is constructing a new stadium. So, but nobody has talked about what has happened to the so-called timber revenues that were collected. So we hope for highlight some of those things as well. And not only that, show also how Parliament is complicit in allowing a monopoly operation, timber monopoly for operators alone, monopolized by an individual that's connected to the presidency.
Which also bring me to the point of the ACC commissioner. He look a little bit quiet, even though the high profile corruption cases they exist and still they happen. I wonder what thing you take about the ACC and the commissioner.
Say that again.
No, they talk about the ACC, Ben Kaifala, the commissioner of the ACC. So whilst high profile corruption still they happen under in watch, and the guy we just mentioned about Timbergate, and then charges then they still remain open, not brought against them, but we know say that the corrupt act. You write an article on that, not even one, several on Babadi Kamara, but because it did in conjunction with the president and WEF, it seems like the ACC boss, yeah, I mean, it can't go beyond that point. You can't bite the hand that feeds you.
Yeah, I think everybody know now. Say the ACC, this current ACC is not. We don't even talk about if you remember in the frontline discussion, I don't even go as far as talking about the fact that in future we need for dismantle the Anti-Corruption Commission, not because it's not a good institution, but it has been used since 2008, where Nkrumah give them some level of autonomy by giving them new legislation, the power to prosecute on their own without necessarily going to the Attorney General's office, law officers department. That day the anti-corruption become a weapon in the hands of politicians against their own opponents. So that we don't see, both in the days of the APC and even now. So what do we need in place of that? We need for strengthening the internal transparency mechanism. What does that mean? We strengthen the independence of the audit service, which is what the IMF really, when they take money from, they suggest all the time, strengthening the independence of the audit service, giving them the financial autonomy where they need for operate, and allowing them for inspect government expenditure, because we are the audit service is functioning properly. It will track government expenditure, note anomalies in government finances, and then those anomalies, in fact, cannot happen if you get an independent, if you get a very robust Accountant General's department, because the Accountant General's department is in charge of authorizing the government checks. Like now, we go send more Fatim, Mohammed Esbayo, go to bank and go withdraw, or Musa Jajua go, they compete for go withdraw from government central account, just like you go now at a side for take money, get water in our village. So that only happens where the auditor, the Accountant General is always writing checks. So where the Accountant General's department is independent, is robust, is functioning properly, then frivolous expenditure, and they know they happen. And then where you have the oversight of Parliament, the Parliamentary Accountability Committee itself is robust, is independent, is functioning. All of these things will be checked. And then if somebody with all this now, all the service check, they find out, say somebody don't take money, it becomes a criminal act. It becomes theft of fraud. Now, a criminal. So there is a criminal investigations department of the police department that investigates the arrest together with the law enforcement and charge the person in a court. It will be where the judiciary is independent and functioning, the person will be convicted and sentenced according to the gravity of the offense as prescribed by law. So you don't need this. You don't need this additional institution. It only became necessary because all of these constituent branches of the executive and the legislative arm and the judicial arm of government are not really functioning. This is why in the 2000s, with the neoliberal democratization or the NGOs, they still want to put them on. They say, okay, since we don't know, so we know the function, government system know the function properly, there are no checks and balances. When we add some NGO-led and NGO-funded institution, or the NGO-led, NGO-funded institution, don't become an anti-democratic weapon.
They all don't compromise as well.
It don't result in latent function is what has happened. But we get anti-corruption laws way back in the colonial era.
Absolutely. But because they don't politicize
corruption, it deals with financial fraud. Now a simple criminal offense.
Now to their own, with all what you describe, it's just suitable for them to organize an anti-corruption body organization, which now themselves they staff up and use them against themselves. It's more politically.
Since the Jan Golden time, 2008, when they appoint, this is why when they appoint Val Collier, 2002 to 2005, he was his hands were tied. He was really determined to fight corruption. But when he investigates corruption, he highlights Harry Weir, Okere Adams, the one that he charged going to the court. Eke Hallowell, then Berewa, then sit up on the case. The case not the good. So we say we need the anti-corruption strategy review. The anti-corruption strategy of 2005 was meant, among the things we suggest, that the independence of the commission, in the sense that the commission should have the power to independently prosecute. So 2008, when APC came 2008 and get the new Anti-Corruption Act, we give them the power for prosecution. Now lawyer for the in charge. That problem now. That is the problem don't start. Team for make a good and independent, it don't become now. So we actually about corruption.
We get 10 more. We get 10 more minutes, and I want to squeeze in few points. We run to almost 2 hours and 30 minutes, and no one for let go past that. So we get roughly about 10 more minutes. The bank governor, the Professor Kalon, two currencies still running side by side. Were promised by December, whatever for be happen, but it's still run side by side. Inflation is over the roof. Cost of living crisis, of course, and the biggest excuse is like it's global, but other countries, they are bringing their inflation down. We're not even almost debt the country gets, and almost then they take. And you mentioned the airports, with a bill at the cost of the equivalent of a new airport. So they renovate one, and now they want to say because they get a new tower, it's a amount to new. And of course, we live in the era of animal farm all over again. I wonder what your view on them few things there, especially with the Bank of Sierra Leone, Professor Kalon, two currencies, the old leons and the new leons, inflation and the debt ratio.
Yeah, not just a sad thing. I pity. I don't talk about this. It's pitiful for see, intellectuals being put in a situation where they have to be tools of corrupt politicians. That are not happy to Father Kalon. He allowed himself, but instead of talking, because he talked before he take power, say the need for hound the opposition because of the hard currencies in their house. So that was the premise of his fiscal policy. So and we blame Parliament for approving somebody like that because he has already said in all the talk I write about her. He granted an interview to Global Times in which he said the collapse of the national currency now because the politicians at the APC were thief money and don't keep the money at the house. So few months he came to Parliament and Parliament approved him. After that, Parliament also gave the legal basis for introducing a new currency as part of the process for say, okay, since we don't try for hoard, we don't try for frustrating people there for preventing and bring the money not green. Now we'll make sure that the currency If they keep money, they also make the money expire. So introduce new currency. Now the old currency, new currency, all the function. Two currencies in the country. And up to now, what we hear where the bank governor say, this is trouble and able to make the two currency work. The parliamentarian they organize the opposition and then tell the young journalists then, and they first begin talk the opposition. The media people who are tied to the parliamentary wing of the opposition, APC, now then begin first talk state for sack the bank governor. Because the bank governor don't allow two currency don't agree for me the old currency, don't bring back the old loan. Because they were disappointed, they were hoping that the policy would have crippled the other APC, the APC colleagues and wait and think say or believe say keep money in the house. So by releasing and allowing them to flood the market with whatever currency, if the alleged hoarded currency, they think say they've been defeated. So they begin say the bank governor of Saka, well, it's not be sacked. So this comes down to one thing. The entire country we have become victims as a country to the class warfare, internal class warfare, internecine warfare, not between working class against this ruling, but in the internal fight between these middle class people. We don't hold the country's kleptocratic politicians, we don't hold the country hostage. Now the war, both within their party and across the parties, is what has transformed the country to what it is. So the economic crisis we see, the political instability we see, the atrocities and all of this is the result of this internal APC fight and the fight between APC, the opposition alliance with Madabio against a sector of the opposition that is not in agreement with Bio. So this triangular crisis between these opportunistic and corrupt forces, they don't translate into all of these other crises. They don't produce this inflation, and now the economy don't go. So elephant in the fight, the grass don't suffer. They don't cause the thing. And we as spectators have called it a rude dance. Rude dance. We don't witness one rude dancers. A set of rude dancers came on the stage and danced their rude dance, go, other one then come. Now the stage don't become chaotic because those in the past and all don't mix up. So we now the watching now say, hey, it's still not a problem. Also, so we don't know which one of the dancers they go for win, how it's becoming messy all over. So Poto don't enter inside.
We are spectators and analysts, and the question, of course, goes to you. You think, say, election will be held on time on the date as things they unfold? Waiting, are you thoughts on that?
Me not to the electoral commissioner, but me just say any which way now they try, we watch. Once see how they will resolve the crisis when they sign out.
And so equally so, you know to spokesperson for APC, but again, you're not analyst, you're not political strategist, you're not journalist, investigative for that matter. So we look at circumstances and
I don't will talk whether election will happen June, not for happen. We expect say election should happen in June because shifting now and they will be going against the constitution, which they are not scared of doing.
You're absolutely right.
But now they say it's not in my place to say election.
No, I'm redirecting the question towards a different end now. I've moved away from there. So Naimeka say, to APC spokesperson or whatever, but as an analyst and strategist and publisher, writer, you think say APC they on cause and time, which to me is of an essence, that APC go able for consolidate for pose a formidable candidate so that Sierra Leoneans can have a peace of mind by having an election in which the contest is fierce and probably independent?
Well, the fact of the matter is that it's not the entire APC that is in crisis. Now, a sector of the opposition that they hold the APC hostage, and they are not in the majority. That's at the point. They have only been able to get away with what they've gotten away because they are allies of the state, and the state machinery, and they help them to do that. So the fact of the matter is, Madabio cannot continue to be president unopposed. It's impossible. We get a multi-party environment. The constitution I mean, it will be so unfortunate for him for even think say he will continue another time without having competition. In other countries where leaders um, have become so bold, for me, they know even Paul Biya or Kagame,
Cameroon.
they organize parties and they organize their own political party, their own opposition. Give the person money, say contest against me. If they don't want me person contest. So we cannot have it with yeah, in the I mean in rogue in plainly authoritarian regimes where you can talk say, okay, when they go to they say more make election no more for the sake of election. The ruling party, the president, the president, the opponent. Like for example, Cameroon, you will get a party who will contest where you can second. But the party actually the candidate and the president the candidate and the president the party. But they just have to. They just have to have the facade of an election. So for make people that begin to say that no matter before God oppose no election. I mean itself is a bizarre is a
Yeah,
bizarre.
yeah,
So
check,
that
check.
tells you that answer the question that if elections are organized today between Mother Bill and an empty ballot box, and people are allowed to vote free and fair, an empty ballot box will defeat Bill, will receive more votes
Okay,
than Bill. That
very
is the
interesting.
and which is why they don't even want an empty ballot box to contest against Bill. They want Bill to continue. They want to find a constitutional argument to allow Bill to continue without even competing with an empty ballot box.
Cheno, that's a damning
No, no,
indictment
no,
there.
no. If you ask me as an analyst how I see the situation, that's
Oh
how
yeah,
I
no, no,
see it.
I agree. I'm just saying it's a
Yeah.
damning indictment as opposed to that, yeah, empty ballot box, with the president. Goodness,
So,
if other
so,
building
so
watch,
coming back, so
making
coming back to then that deals with the question of time. It deals with the question of time.
absolutely,
That
absolutely. But just on a quick one again, Cheno, because we get the last 3 minutes and you get forget the final word. But going back to the opposition APC party, obviously there is a clash between the opposition in parliament and the opposition outside of parliament. But one of the names then we would on the hear, even though they not do the flag bearer election yet, is that of Dr. Samura Kamara. You've written lengthily about Dr. Samura Kamara. And also the scandal we be surround Dr. Samura Kamara. You are very vast with that scandal there, and I'm waiting the other side they try for do. I wonder whether you can give Sierra Leonean people an update because a lot of them were listening to you when you were talking about this particular issue surrounding Dr. Samora. Where is Dr. Samora right now in terms of that case day, in and out of court, and etc. etc. And do you think, from your own personal perspective, that there's nothing to hold Dr. Samura on and he go emerge able for contest as a flag bearer for the opposition?
no, I don't. I don't have to talk about the court case. Now, Freetown. As far as I know, what I published was about the transfer of funds from Freetown to New York in 2019, between February to September 2019. We get for do with money close to $5 million that was sent to New York in the name of renovating the Sierra Leone diplomatic mission in Manhattan. We're supposed to house the diplomats in Freetown. And the African Express showed concrete evidence. Nobody will deny that the $5 million was transferred when Madabi was in power. And the money got to New York, and the money was not used for the construction. We also show say the matter in a court. We show say the government within a power when they take building permits for construct the in the same time with America. So for we, that is the evidence in front of we. And I don't look at people where they talk about the case. We then talk say the money when we talk about that Samura Kamara in time net transfer. We say no, but there's no evidence there. What we've shown again, say in 2018, the money came from China to Sierra Leone. We show all the transactions from the Chinese government will come, some through even this embassy in Freetown. We don't show that one day. Nobody not deny that one day. So the origin of the funds we've shown, the transmission of the funds we've shown, the destination of the funds we've shown. We've also shown that the funds were not used. Who were the people in charge? Ali Kaba, Nabila Tunis, the ambassadors in New York. Then When the anti-corruption say they investigate the case, they say they go to 2011. But the only evidence that has come out in the proceedings have been matters dealing with no other evidence. Yeah, no other evidence not in the public domain regarding the transaction of funds, apart from what we don't publish. Have you seen any? You don't ever see anybody show you. So what I had the opposition people, and these are the opposition people in back, opposition people in the APC and in the NGC. Now they talk say, Samura Kamara talks say, they receive 2 million. So they say me for pull the money away if you take two. How am I responsible?
Are you not the pioneer accountant?
Business. You don't understand.
So
there's a part to it where I want for answer.
Yeah.
One lady's premise first before I come to the actual question and what I want to say. So we not see any evidence. So somebody in the APC winner, a flag bearer contender for professional sake, I know will raise in, I know name it. Call me. He say, Samura, we don't say this, say don't take so. So what do you want me to do? He said I said, wait, if you get evidence, publish the evidence. But make I tell you, I say I get I don't look at the bank record for the last 30 years, including you, who have been the minister. I tell you, I say, including you, who have been there as a minister. I say, in fact, I get all the transaction and allocation of funds that went to you as an APC minister. I say, so I have those. I say, so you know, tell me waiting and no for me to publish what I not get. I said, besides, do not mix me in your flag bearer computer and my own business. You don't understand. But this is what I know, what I want to say. I understand lately, in the process of investigation, I understand lately say when we published the chance rebuilding story, there were APC people, including a former anti-corruption commissioner, the Mide Dakar. You don't understand. While they were reading, then they read the article. Somebody tell me, say, oh, they say they're happy. In fact, they had a drink. Then drink, say the following morning, the hangover nearly killed them. So these are somebody will tell me now, a trusted informant of mine. He said, and that's one. I said, what happened? He said, they've been glad for the story. So what I did not know then, which I knew later, or I can find out later, the fact that these were the people who advised Madabio say now for date the crime and the evidence on Samura Kamara in head. So basically they were looking for something to put on their opponent's head. So this, in fact, incident I just talked about happened in Dakar. I hope the people who are involved in this will listen. You know, if they know what I talk about. So what they begin to talk about, they say Africanist press now we give Samura Kamara case. We say no. I mean, what we publish is about Madabio and the officials are transferring over $5 million to New York and not using it. The question is that case is not in front of the court. The case within a court, the case against Samura is not the case about what we publish. The government has not touched that evidence. They refuse to do it because if in fact the one day we take the money, we report about that and are witnesses against them, including even now if they look at the past case, there were people who worked in the Foreign Affairs Ministry as deputy ministers or assistant ministers in the Foreign Affairs Ministry when Samura was there. The Director General of the Foreign Affairs Ministry was listed as a witness in the papers against the minister when Director General, the equivalent of the permanent secretary, when I'm the administrative head of the ministry. How will you fail to indict that person and these other people and single out? So for me, I think the Leoneans, we do harm to ourselves. I do not need to be part of a political party or to support an individual to speak truth. You don't understand? I will never write. I tell people like this. I will never write that any politician in Sierra Leone is a good politician. You don't ever say I'm writing. Okay? When I was publishing stories about APC under Nkrumah, the SLPP, including Madabio's group, they were sharing it. But there is no article, to the extent that people then say Madabio had a support. But there is no article you will find in my writing or no statement in which I said Madabio is the best politician, vote for him. I will never say that. Because I already say the politicians in the APC and the SLPP are the same. I've said both parties are the same. In fact, when I was active, when I tried to act when I try to act in politics. That was my message.
Final question to you.
Yeah.
The name of another political heavyweight, a rife na the air. Some attribute am to rumors, some say substance deep on the rumor. I dey talk about Dr. Kandeh Yumkella. Some people they say he's gone back to his roots, which is the ruling SLPP party. But the truth here is, and I can always say that to friends personally, Dr. Kandeh's ambition, of course, he demonstrated that openly. He wants to be president of the Republic of Sierra Leone. And for like be president of the Republic of Sierra Leone, the party where he currently the head does not provide a vehicle for him for make him president. So therefore, he has to lie between the two parties. And I know say you talk about something earlier we get for do with COPE, which have been part of the arrangement. The question to you, sir, is how you see Dr. Kandeh currently in terms of the nature of politics. Is he a spent force? Have you heard, or will you confirm, or will you insinuate whether it don't go back to original party, the SLPP? Any news for Sierra Leoneans? Then we care for anything around that nature there?
Me not worry about whether a politician go to this party or go to the other party. That is left with the NGC to worry about. That's their own headache. In 2017 December, we get this Sierra Leonean political scientist, Zubairu Y. He teach, I think now at the University of Toronto. He write one nice post where I really like up to this point. I always think about it. I say dilemma of the ghost. So I took that post and then expand on about NGC. So I've written about the NGC way back in 2018, leading up to the elections. My views are well documented on it. I am not really sympathetic or supporter of breakaway factions of the middle class itself as it is in Sierra Leone. So whether KKY is going to SLPP, is not going to SLPP, that is the headache of the NGC. Let them deal with it. So when I just know no more say no individual politician or political group would trade off, because I'm not used to this thing. Well, declare for this party and the supporter, they all they go. That is no longer the Sierra Leone that we have. You don't understand? Politicians will only be relevant from now moving forward if they work along with the mass interest. It's going to change. So the same way I've been talking the last election, the politician declaring for one party or the other party go change the equilibrium as it is in favor of APC. Because leading up to the election of 2018, APC been go sign MOU with that small party. They're all forbidden declare for them. Did that prevent the APC from being defeated in 2018? No. So to answer your question, they even spend me time to think about within one political party leader decide which party decide for go, which party not go decide for go. Let it happen. If it happens,
Okay.
it happens. If it happens, let the NGC deal with that. Let them deal with whether their leader is going to.
Yeah, I mean that's one aspect of it, and well said. Of course, carefully meander around that. But the other aspect was, as a political force, is he spent? He came on the scene, he burst on the scene, he was heavy. That's what I'm saying. And to date, 4 years on, where is he?
Make the NGC answer that question. So
Okay.
let them believe. One day forget the opportunity for believe in their leader and support their leader and believe so not just their leader but their party is an alternative. Let them believe in that.
I don't know Mr. Barr to be political in answering questions, but a little bit of the latter part of this interview sounds a little bit like political.
For me, those questions are not important. I don't spend my time thinking about what I think is not important to think about.
But it is important for Sierra Leonean people.
No, I know. No, I talk about, for me, on personal point of view, I don't think it's even relevant going forward in the elections. So,
all right,
which is why I do not spend time.
You have an absolute right to you.
But I want those who want to believe in that, think about it, to think about it, including those in the NGC, make them believe in the project.
Yeah, Dr. Kandeh Yumkella is the head of a political party in a parliament. they aspire for be president. We all know his ambition and intention, and therefore that make him a political actor on the national stage. So he's quite an important man, and
No,
people.
I don't say not important. I don't say
No,
for
no,
me.
I'm not implying that you say so. No, not at all. Not at all, Cherno. Anyway, that was my final question. Final word, Cherno.
No, I want to make people, with all said, I don't say we don't talk about a lot of daunting challenges, difficult moments, and what appears to be like a non-clear roadmap. No, what I have highlighted is a crisis of the system that which we will look at, not to the impossibility of things, so but the difficulties where Madabio and your supporters and the politicians that the opposition will help, and the difficulties where they don't enter into now highlight. And in saying that, at the time of talk say the possibilities for change is more obvious to we than it was before now. Now, because it's obvious, say Madabio will get away with the original plan, and we see this tension what they see. Not to tension about Madabio being victim, tension relating to the defeat, where they don't suffer, and their ability. They do all kinds of things now for Fed. And we not expect a group of people, both in the opposition and in the ruling party, for operate the way they operate, so for go easily. They will have to find ways, because the defeat of the Bio regime is not just Madabio is going to affect, it's going to affect a lot of people. 80% of the Sierra Leonean crisis itself, in my view, will be crashing. 80% of those who are responsible for holding our country hostage will crash in 2023 when the Madabio government is defeated. That's the reality. And that is no easy thing. It's no easy thing. When you have 80% of the elite interests in the country facing obvious defeat and collapse, a serious thing for deal with. So, which is why we have to observe it carefully and be patient with it, and because we are heading for the possibility of real change. What that will do, it will provide the actual basis and the open terrain for real change in a saloon. And that one day we look forward to, which is why we are entertained by the current situation and not thinking that there's impossibilities. So we know they say again, the defeat of Madabio in 2023 would mean say everything will be rosy and good and gold and everything, but it will provide what we think and imagine as the kind of open space for the development of the kind of ideas we will move out of, at least begin move out of the kind of situations that we're in. But why you see so? Journalists there now, lawyers there now, politicians, business people, academics, their entire future in a saloon, they at stake. The way they bargain with Madabio and how they try for worker. And that one, then in the Fed for protect. And these are all powerful interest groups with education, with money, stolen money, with influence in the institutions and all of that. So these collapse where they see. They're not slide, they're not put so they collapse. They're big Fed. So they try to hold each other for pull each other back. And make the system. So possibility there for change. Make we believe in ourselves as people, may we continue for the do what they do, circulate the information, circulate with few or many, but we have power. Our power is what has gotten us to where we are, with the resilience and the determination. So when I look forward, beginning in this February, we will try very hard for publish 2 times a week. Me self get other responsibilities, teaching responsibilities. What I do with the African Express now, just my community service to Sierra Leone for help, provide check to some of the bad things the way they happen, so that politicians don't go feel say they can do something more and get away with them. But professionally, I have my own professional career, what I do to earn my own living. So I'll be trying to balance those along with my sacrifices to the country. So sometimes we will miss certain days we have to publish, but we intend to publish 2 times a week as we approach the election. So another one for say thank you very much, Mr. Prince Kroma. And we'll try again for bring the then and now the frontline Saturday, usual Saturday show moving forward. And thanks to everybody we don't miss we and don't wait for some time. We are here, still committed to the same things.
Many thanks, Mr. Ba. It's always a pleasure hosting you. And to the many fans in another area and from the horse's mouth itself. In Frontline show is still very much alive and kicking. But of course, there are other commitments around all of these things that we do. So we sure see Leoneans then will provide an understanding. But like Cherno can always say, there's a covenant between you and the people for provide information for them, which will serve as a guiding principle for a future democratic and very independent Sierra Leone. I also they try for use this occasion for appeal to women, viewers them. They want they will be don't feel disillusion in some sense, and especially as we had a late start to 2023, for continue to keep the faith. There's a commitment that will continue for provide information to UNA. We will not able to no other side as una the conversation. It is non-aligned, politically speaking. We are neither here nor there, and they talk about connections or affiliations with any of the entity they are they talk about. Okay. The numbers as well continue for grow. We YouTube number where we they grow organically still stands a little bit below in terms of subscription, 4,000. This year we want to grow that number there to 10,000, and we can only realize that with your help. Please try to help us to reach that number, okay? Not cost you any money, nothing at all, and just for click the subscription button, okay? It is good for the channel. In behalf of everybody we watch the show and we get for watch them later, I want to say thank you very much. And until we catch up again, which will be very, very soon, thank you so much for tuning in. Channel, many thanks, and we will see you later.